Welcome to Strictly Ball Business. Alec here with Dalton. We're going to chat about a few topics heading into this 2021-22 season. First of all, we're going to give a preview on the Charlotte Hornets, a team that was in the play-in tournament last year and has a very solid young core. We have a lot of excitement over there to talk about. We're also going to talk a little bit about unvaccinated players in the league, implications for why this is even a deal, why people are talking about this, and mainly we're going to talk about what's next moving forward for these guys. And next from there, we'll talk a little bit about the Portland Trailblazers, a trade that they could make to make themselves better. What trade is there out there? We're going to discuss that. We'll also get into the Pacers. Should they rebuild or should they push for a star? We're going to talk a little bit on both sides there and determine, what is the right move for them. So first of all, the Charlotte Hornets, they made the play-in tournament last year. They were tons of fun to watch. Their announcer is probably the best announcer in the league. Highlight reel dunks from Miles Bridges, alley-oops from LaMelo Ball, PJ Washington's fun. This is a fun squad. Terry Rozier's awesome. Where do you want to get started here on the Charlotte Hornets?
Well, we can start with they had a really busy offseason. I didn't actually realize it until I started looking at all their additions and who they lost. Like starting off, they lost Biyombo, Graham, Caleb Martin, Malik Monk, Grant Riller, Wanamaker, and Zeller. But they added. I actually really like. I think they definitely got better this offseason. They added Book Knight, who I was really hoping the Magic would draft at 8. I think he'll be really nice for them. Iwundu, also Magic alum. Just good for a defense. He's a good perimeter defender. Just someone to throw into lineups. They got Jones. I love Kai Jones. I thought he was a really nice prospect. Scotty Lewis, another defensive player. They got Oubre. I like Oubre. Not granted, I got on the Oubre train after all of his potential was gone, so I just saw him as the player he was and not the player Phoenix needed him to be or Washington needed him to be. And then Plumley, Ish Smith, DJ Carton, and Kolboka. I think. Hope I'm not pronouncing that wrong. So obviously they added a bunch of nice guys. Plumley was kind of Plumley and Oubre were their headliners this offseason, I'd say.
Yeah, outside of the draft picks.
Yeah. I was actually super surprised. I really thought Andre Drummond would have been a really nice fit for these guys. They have all the spacing they could need. Everyone shoots. It's not like Zeller was shot 14% from 3, so it's not like you're losing anything on 3. I mean, he shot probably more mid-rangers and Drummond does like his post-up game, but I didn't think they were going to lose much, and at least you get some all right defense. I wouldn't say he's a complete liability. He still is a decent shot blocker and awesome rebounder. That's half of defense is just rebounding. It's a very underrated part of his game. I mean, everyone knows he's a good rebounder, but it's part of defense is rebounding.
I would say Andre Drummond is not far off from a complete liability. I mean, he was unplayable in most matchups for the Lakers this last season. And offensively, when he gets the ball down low, he's a fumbler. He's not a guy you can expect to put it back up after an offensive rebound. So it's just, a tough guy to put into your system, especially if you're the Charlotte Hornets and you want to run and gun. Who I actually thought would have been a great fit for them at the 5 was Rashaan Holmes, who ended up getting a decent contract from the Sacramento Kings, but the Hornets could have realistically matched that, gone much higher and made it tough on the Kings to retain him. I guess they decided that wasn't worthwhile for them, but they still have a great cast of guys here. They're just kind of missing that big man. But in terms of guys they do have at the big, PJ Washington is a power forward. He's 22 years old, can get his own shot. He shoots the 3 pretty well. Solid role player. Really gives you a lot on offense, in my opinion. It's just defense that you're asking for a lot more there. And, hopefully eventually that guy can become available. Miles Turner is always a thought here. Can they trade for him? That would be awesome too.
Yeah, we always talk about Miles Turner, so I made sure in my notes that I didn't mention him anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like PJ Washington. I think he's gonna be a solid player. But I mean, watching him play, it's obviously super exciting on that offensive end. But when it comes to the defense, much like a lot of the players on this team, they surprisingly enough, their team defense it's actually pretty decent. They're able to fill in the gaps. They're switching fine, but it's their individual defense. Someone's put it on an island, it's a for sure score. It's kind of weird
Mhm.
because like they have some decent defenders, like Hayward's a decent defender, Rozier's a decent defender, Miles is all right, but I mean, if that's your best, like I really think they need an elite um defender. Just like who did we talk about the other day? But an elite defender would really go hard. I mean, they don't have anybody who I think. I mean, maybe Rozier I think would take on if they're like, hey, we need you to guard
Yeah.
that player. But he's also what 6'3", 6'4". Like it,
Yeah.
you prefer to have your elite defender be a forward, so they because more versatile. They can if they have to guard a big, they can, but keep up with perimeter players. But
Yeah, I mean, hopefully LaMelo Ball can get there. He's 6'6". He's 20 years old. He's still young. He showed us a ton of promise on the offensive end this last year. I think it's just going to be a matter of does LaMelo Ball want to become a great defender? Because all the tools are there. He's fast. He's laterally quick. He brings out the best in his own teammates in offense. I could see him doing the same on defense from a leadership standpoint if he can figure out it himself. He's great. He's a great leader for this franchise to have, in my opinion. I think ideally you have another top pick alongside him, but they don't want to tank anymore, obviously, and they're kind of too good to do that as well. So it's kind of tough, but I think they'll be able to get another solid dude next to him right now with Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier. Those are a couple of solid veterans. They just re-signed Terry Rozier as well. He's a great shooter. He's a great driver as well for his size. And Gordon Hayward has gotten a really bad rep over the last few years because of his injuries. But in reality, he is an all-star player and he gives you solid defense and he gives you a great mid-range shot. He can hit the three and he's a decent facilitator as well. It's just the injuries that unfortunately keep coming back to him.
yeah, and it hurt him that they just couldn't find a place for him on that Boston Celtics team, so he looked just out of place. So when he was playing, like you naturally assume like, oh, he's just not doing that well. But he was like also filling a role that two other people were filling, and he was forced into the lineup. It was this whole convoluted thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I think he's awesome. I think he has a place in this team if they were to compete a little bit more. I have a trade that they could possibly make in at the end of this, but I think where they have to improve start is their starting center. I think they have to start with that. I mean, Cody Zeller, funny enough, Cody Zeller was a positive player last season. He was offensive rating at 112, defensive 110, 59% true shooting. Not the best. I mean, it was his true shooting is fine. It was whatever. Nine
He's not
points
on
a
the team
game.
anymore, though, right? Now he's in
Right.
Portland.
So transitioning. So Mason Plumley is our new guy. His offensive rating 109, defensive 114, true shooting 63%. So a little bit better of a offensive big, not by rating standards, but he was also on the Pistons, who were a much worse team, and that if the team offensive rating affects the player offensive rating and vice versa. So I mean,
Yep.
he could turn out to be a better offensive player than Zeller in this system. But really, what they're getting out of Plumley that they were missing is rebounds. Their top rebounder was I'm pretty sure it was Miles Bridges. Yeah. PJ Washington at 6.5 rebounds a game. That was their top rebounder. Zeller was right behind him with well, I guess he's not on the team right now, but 6.8 actually. He was right ahead of him. And that was your starting center. At least Plumley will come in, rebounds 9.3 a game. He's not going to space the floor for you, but Zeller shot 14% from three. Like how much of a difference there is. I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
he at least shot mid range, but I think in a certain role and what they have going around all the spacing, I don't think Plumlee has to shoot. I don't think
Yeah.
that's needed. He can just sit in the dunker spot. It worked well for him enough with the Pistons.
Yeah,
But
not a sexy pick, not a sexy signing, but solid player. And they needed the rebounds. They needed a guy with more size who can at least play the center position or even the power forward position with some size. And ideally, they're hoping Kai Jones turns into something sooner rather than later, but you needed to get some veteran talent, at least for now. And what we're finding is there's not a whole lot of good veteran bigs out there that are available, really. They tend to only get moved around through trades.
yeah, and a lot of the good bigs that could be available are very undersized. Like Chris Boucher, I think. I mean, some forward has to go with the Raptors. They're crowded, so you'd like to think they're going to switch in for a guard sooner or later, or I don't know, or maybe a real center. So Chris Boucher or Nobi, there's going to be an odd man out with Scotty Barnes, Siakam. I mean, 4 starting caliber players on one team who've all played 3 or 4, and I mean, one of them could play center, but he's very undersized. So
Yeah.
I think Chris Boucher would fit well on this team. I think
Yeah, he'd be
it
great for the
suits.
Hornets.
Yeah, I think it suits the Hornets more because they have a point guard like Melo who can run, and he's a great playmaker. Like it fits into that fast system, that run and gun, and that's why like you can give up size because you'll be more versatile. You'll be running, and it's just 7-second offense. So like I think that'll fit better than the Raptors, who are more of a slower pace, like half court offense.
Yeah,
So
LaMelo Ball will pull another inch or two out of these guys.
yeah, yeah, that's right. But no,
That's
I
how it'll
think
go.
LaMelo Ball, if they wanted, I think they definitely started their pursuits to the playoffs a year or two early. I mean, before LaMelo was drafted, they got Hayward. Not that there's anything wrong with Hayward, but I would have liked to see them get another young top draft pick to put next to him.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
was
I like,
questionable at the
yeah,
time because they had just, declined on resigning Kemba Walker a couple years prior to that for big money, which obviously ended up being a good choice. But nonetheless, then they go around right after that and pay Gordon Hayward basically not much less than what Kemba got. So it was like, why?
yeah.
At least pay the hometown guy. And Gordon Hayward was an injury prone white dude coming into North Carolina. I mean,
I, I mean, I think it worked out for Hayward. However, their timeline is a little. They have to do something to get out of limbo. It's either LaMelo takes that superstar step today, I mean this season or next season, and I think that'll certainly change the conversation. It'll make a lot of people think about them as an actual playoff team rather than a play-in tournament team. I
yeah.
do think one of the other younger guys has to step up. I don't think it's going to be Miles Bridges. I think we've seen his role, we've seen his peak. PJ Washington could definitely get up there. I think Book Knight certainly has that potential, but I do think they need to go out and get someone. So I say it like they need a first scoring option, not because Melo can't be a first scoring option or can't grow into one, but because since playmaking is arguably one of his, like, if not his best skill, like when you have a playmaker like that, you tend to want someone else who's a better scorer. So then like
Mhm.
I mean, obviously Bradley Beal's thrown around a lot. So if you have someone like that, takes the pressure off them, they can just score. And LaMelo, not that LaMelo doesn't have to score, but less
Yeah, I mean,
pressure off
maybe
him.
in their minds, one of these guys like Book Knight develops into something solid in the next year or two. But at that point, they pull the trigger on a big trade and they're like, well, we're already ready to compete. We've got solid players that are here now, but we also had our young stuff that we gave up to get that better star. You never know who's going to become available. It might not be someone as good as Bradley Beal, but maybe they get a guy even just like TJ Warren, maybe a guy like, I don't know, even on the same team, Pacers, Karis LeVert, someone like that, not necessarily those guys specifically, but somebody who can get 20 points per game and shoot the three a few times is definitely what they're looking for. Ideally, James Bouknight is that guy. We have no idea if he's that guy. He hasn't played a single minute of regular season basketball in the NBA, so we have no idea.
Yeah.
So
I
top picks
mean,
bust all the time.
you're right. I just don't think that'll be enough. I mean, in the long term, just getting borderline all-star. I think they need to pick up either an all-star now or pair him up with another superstar. As I mean, everyone says you need to pair someone else with another superstar. They certainly
Yeah,
could pull it out, but I don't
easier
think.
said than done.
Yeah, easier said than done. But they are a high turnover team. I think a lot of that will change. I mean, Devontae Graham didn't get as many turnovers and they let him go. However, Rozier is a high turnover, and obviously LaMelo Ball handled the ball a lot, and he was a high turnover, but it was his rookie year, so you can't complain too much. But I think that'll get fixed. Their starting lineup, what do you think that looks like? Like Ball, I have Ball, Rozier, Hayward, Washington, Plumley, and Oubre as their sixth man.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Kai Jones is ready to start from day one. If he can possibly start later in the year, if he starts developing early on, that'd be great. But typically, we don't see centers have good rookie years. It's just rare, especially from a defensive standpoint. And
Yeah.
if the Hornets want to play well this year, they're going to need a guy in there who can play some level of defense. So I agree. That's probably the correct starting five till Gordon Hayward gets injured the first week. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and that's when Book Knight can step in, or Miles.
Yeah, it's a deep team. It's important to have depth. They've not been drafting like stars necessarily that effectively well, but they've done a very good job of getting good role players in here surrounding guys like LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, and Gordon Hayward. So I think this is a team that could possibly make it as high as the 6th seed in the East if a lot went well for them. Realistically, they're a play-in tournament team, kind of same level as like the Toronto Raptors. I'm really excited to see how they turn out this year. I think LaMelo Ball in his second year is going to be a ton of fun. His ball handle was awesome last year, and it's probably going to be even better this year. I'm hoping for some deep threes.
Yeah.
Hoping for some circus layups. I think it's going to be fun.
Oh yeah, but so I mentioned him before. I think they're a really sneaky team to when Bradley Beal decides it's time to leave Washington. I think they have a lot of assets and capital that they could make it happen. So this is value as taken today. This is what I have. So it's Bradley Beal with an expiring of Harrell, right? Well, and they get Terry Rozier, Mason Plumley, Mason Plumley more to match the salaries. Miles Bridges and James Bouknight, 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks for Bradley Beal and Harrell. So I don't think Harrell adds too much on the Wizards side, giving up. He's an expiring deal. He really didn't do well last season. I don't think that's much of losing. That's more of the Hornets just saying, hey, we need an effort player. We're going to need some bench production. He could be their starting center, or if Kai Jones has developed enough, they could throw him in there. They can go small ball center. They did do that a few times last season with PJ. So that's possible, but I think it would be a nice place with Bradley Beal. Obviously, defense is the biggest question there, but what do you think?
Oh, it'd be a ton of fun. I think that package is reasonable too. Like in a theoretical world, when he requests a trade a year from now, that package would probably be still really solid. Um, Bradley Beal with LaMelo Ball would be a ton of fun if they had a decent big man next to him. Say Kai Jones develops a little bit, PJ Washington next to him, but obviously Bradley Beal becoming the best player on that team. You let LaMelo Ball worry a little bit less about scoring and more about getting the ball to Beal and other guys while still being a great scorer who can drive it to the rim and shoot it from God knows how far he wants to. Yeah, that'd be a ton of fun, man.
Yeah. Super excited. They're a really fun team to watch. So
yeah,
I'm excited to watch the Hornets.
Yeah, that is a first.
You heard
and
it.
Like before when they were the Bobcats, this franchise has not seen a lot of great days. They set the record for the, least amount of wins or the worst record in the NBA. And I hate to bring up stuff like that because I really want to see them do well. This is an exciting squad. It's a fun fan base that deserves to see a winning team. Their uniforms are sweet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hell yeah, let's go. Let's have a great year this year. But we'll move on to our next topic. Something hot in the NBA right now. is vaccination status. Something I never expected to see in my lifetime. But with COVID-19, things are new and changing every day. There are some unvaccinated players in the league. We'll get to just saying right off the bat, 90% of players are vaccinated. That's good to see. We'd love to get that number to 100%, in my opinion. But right now, there are a few teams that are kind of in limbo with this vaccination mandate that's not in the NBA. But there is, however, restrictions in specific cities causing their players to have some issues. Those cities being New York City and San Francisco, which affects our teams, the New York Knicks, Brooklyn Nets, and Golden State Warriors. Everyone knows Andrew Wiggins does not want to take the vaccine. He basically has declined any questions. He's really not digging into like his reasoning for it. He did try getting the religious exemption, and then that did not work. He is the same guy who a few months ago said, I don't see myself getting the COVID-19 vaccine basically until I'm forced to, which now he is basically being forced to, and he's not sticking to his word. But let's start there with Andrew Wiggins. I mean, this guy was on my favorite team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, for years. We just got rid of him. I'm so glad we're not having to deal with this right now on top of the news we had last week. I
Yeah.
mean, God, this guy, he just doesn't stay out of his own way, does he?
No, I know. And luckily, I mean, it's really going to hurt the team. Like, especially at the beginning of this season, plays out. They want to stay competitive. They want to make the playoffs. So missing one of their starting wings, it's going to be tough. And that's 40 games. Actually, so it's probably like closer to 45 with all the New York games put in there, if not more. I mean, if LA becomes, which it's close, if LA pushes this mandate, there's two more teams. That's almost 50 games he's missing out of 70. That's
Yeah.
that's
And that being the rule that we didn't specify technically before, with those cities, they're not requiring anyone who's unvaccinated to go to indoor dining events. They're not allowing them to go to indoor sporting events as well as any other entertainment
Mhm.
event. So therefore, they can't play basketball at their own game. Um, I mean, it's crazy to see, but that is the fact of the matter. The NBA can't come to an agreement with the NBA or NBPA on having a vaccine mandate, but the city said, screw it, we'll have a mandate anyways. So yeah, with Andrew
Yeah.
Wiggins in San Francisco, Golden State Warriors, I mean, is he
Uh,
gonna get paid still?
it's once you start missing games, if you don't show up to the first game, there's a paycheck. There's this Brian Windhorst has gone a lot over this. I'm not some pay extraordinaire with the NBA, but it's the more games you miss, this less you get paid, no matter what the reason you miss it for. So it's like the same deal. If Wiggins wants to isn't going to get vaccinated, it's the same deal as Ben Simmons is going through. Like, if he's going to sit out games, uh, financially, it's the same deal. He's
That's
not going
true.
to
He
get
did
paid.
have that quote. Someone said, you withstand to lose lots of money. What do you say about that? And he said, that's my problem, not yours,
Yeah.
essentially. So I guess he's prepared for that. Um, he just doesn't want to get a little prick in his arm. I mean, I understand if he's afraid of needles. I personally fought a needle fear my whole life, but I also am not a total bitch. So I was able to go get my vaccine and take care of my neighbors.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually not too concerned about Wiggins. They talked to Steve Kerr, and he sounded pretty confident. He's like, I'm confident Wiggins is going to do the right thing. He's like, I'm expecting everyone that needs to be on the floor to be on the floor on
But
opening
like,
day.
if you expected that, wouldn't he have done it by now?
I don't
What's
know.
gonna change from now to the regular season? You really, like, everyone keeps saying they just expect Kyrie and Andrew Wiggins are gonna get these vaccines before the season start. But like, if that was the case, I think they would have done it already. Why would they bring the circus to training camp? Especially Andrew Wiggins, a reserved guy. I mean, I could see it on Kyrie's angle where he just loves being in the news. He'll
Yeah.
fucking do whatever. He's just Mr. Contrarian without a cause. That is his mantra. But Andrew Wiggins kind of surprised me because, yeah, I understand he's a total fucking idiot. Like, I knew that before, but I also thought he was a reserved guy and maybe didn't want all this spotlight on him for, something as simple as a vaccine.
Yeah, maybe it does conflict with something in his religion, but however, like, you're an NBA player and this is what they want, man. Like, if you want to play basketball, you're gonna do it. That's why, like, if we want to move over, so like that's why Steve Kerr coming out and saying, like, he didn't say he's gonna get the vaccine. He's like, he did not seem worried about it. He was like, no, yep, I'm sure he's gonna get the vaccine. I expect everyone to be out there on the floor opening day. In contrast to like James Harden, Steve Nash, and Kevin Durant, when they're asked about it, they're like, don't worry about it. They're like, we'll deal with that.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, they're like, fuck Kyrie. Like, another thing. Like, how I didn't he just didn't show up to games because he was going out and breaking COVID protocol last season. I mean, he only played 54 games last season.
Yeah, he had to go on sabbatical. He had to just take his time to be Kyrie. Like, franchises coddle this guy all the time. And then he's always just like, you know what? I'm going to throw some more drama on top of it.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of, like, I used to really like Kyrie. Honestly.
I love him as a player. He's so fun to watch.
Super skillful. However, like, what do I have here? Only played 54 games last year. He was injured in the playoffs this season. Twice he was injured in the playoffs with Boston. Missed out 2 of those seasons because he got injured. One of them was before the season playoffs came around. The other one was during the playoffs. Like,
yeah, which the injuries ruined the chemistry there before it could have started.
Yeah. And he just, so if he can't play in home games, that's 40 home games. Plus 2 other teams have the vaccine. So, and LA is not far behind. LA is another 3 games, and it's 3 games with the Knicks and Warriors. So combined for 46 games, he's going to miss out. He says it's a private matter. KD, Harden, not worried. I would be totally worried. I'm just through with it. I'm like, does this guy want to play basketball? Like, out of everything, like, I get it. He thinks the media is out to get him, and the media's not the best at, I mean, they eat up these Kyrie things, but like, dude, like, you're kind of doing it to yourself. like you don't have to do all this. And I know he's like, it's a private matter. It's what I want to do. I shouldn't have to tell somebody what I do with my body, and nobody should tell me what to do. I'm like, okay, like, great, but it's your job. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
I just want to watch you play basketball.
Like, I keep hearing the personal matter on, like, the medical freedom from anti-vaxxers on this matter. And, like, that's right. It is your choice. You're totally allowed to do anything in life, but you're not free from consequence. And that's what they don't get. They don't get that connection. Like, sorry, just because you don't want COVID to be real doesn't mean that it's not. It is here, and it still affects people. Like, it affects overweight people, and it affects elderly people the most. And most people who still recognize that COVID exists, but like they're not worried about it, whatever. They're basically just saying fuck those people, and that's their problem, not mine. Which is like, it's not that hard for you to get a shot to take care of everyone. Not everyone's in the best situation. Not everyone is obese by choice. There is diabetes that is still an issue in this world as well. Yeah. And when people have preconditions that they didn't choose to have themselves, well, then things pile on top of each other when they get COVID, and maybe they get complications with that. And all it really comes down to is, are you willing to do something that takes less than 10 minutes to take care of your fellow neighbor? And, I heard Jonathan Isaac use the quote, "Love thy neighbor," when he was talking about his anti-vax stance the other day. And it was just so ironic.
Yeah. That's a tough thing. He is a very religious guy. However, that didn't make any sense to me either. No,
he's just like, his whole thing, it reminded me of every pastor that, like, or his conference that I'm talking about, answering questions. It reminded me of every time I went to church and the pastors just spew a bunch of bullshit like that sounds really good, like they're well spoken, but it's just a bunch of horse shit they spilled all over the floor and none of it makes sense. And that's what Jonathan Isaac did. Like
Yeah.
he contradicted his previous statement, like too.
No, yeah, and obviously it's not as big of a deal because with Jonathan Isaac, because he's probably not even going to play the first 10 games anyway, and they just want to see he's still in rehab right now. We still have yet to figure out when we're going to see him this season. However, when that comes around, like we're gonna have to see it. Like everyone wants to see him play. Like he's been out constantly, it seems like, since he was drafted, and he got that big contract. So hopefully he plays some NBA games before.
Yeah. It's like, oh, now you're gonna be out because you don't want to get the vaccine. It's like you've been out half of your career, dude.
Like you have a
That's not gonna
responsibility
sit
to
well
play.
with management.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no. Well,
I mean, these guys are getting paid millions of dollars, like, and they're making a complaint like, oh, I don't know what's getting put in my body there. It's like, hey, bro, you're getting paid millions of dollars. You'll put whatever I tell you to put in your body. Like, if I'm the general manager, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, hey, man, if I come up to you and I say, take these performance enhancing drugs, you're also taking those. And you might take a fall for it. We'll still pay you under the table, but you take whatever I give you if I'm the manager.
no, it's literally only because it's called a COVID vaccine. If like
That's
people
so
are always like, I care about what goes in my body. I'm like, when your yearly flu shot comes around, you know it's a different flu shot every year, right? Like it's the same thing. Like if they would have just called the COVID vaccine a flu shot, people wouldn't. So how
Well,
many
I
people
think
would have taken it?
the flaw with that as well is that most people that aren't getting these COVID vaccines probably don't get their flu shots annually.
Yeah, probably.
So I
Right.
think they just don't get vaccines in general and they don't want to be bothered to go out of their way to get something where they're like, I don't think I need that. So I understand it from that standpoint, but not in a way that I think it's okay. I understand it in a way that, oh, that's their thinking. They're still a piece of shit. That's kind of where I'm at on that.
Yeah, nah, I'm with you. So
I
I
mean,
just
I need to get my flu shot more often, but let's just say get your COVID shot. I mean, god damn it. We're in a pandemic for a reason. I don't know why people need to think that it's
yeah,
like some coup and mass conspiracy against them that somehow all the other countries are in on.
I don't know.
But
I just want to see Kyrie play basketball.
yeah, I would love to see Kyrie play basketball alongside James Harden and Kevin Durant as well. Jonathan Isaac on this Magic team is going to be fun. Andrew Wiggins sucks at basketball. Michael Porter Jr., anti-vax as well. He's really good, though. Bradley Beal, I mean, I want to see him keep playing. But he was, man, that was rough conference to watch.
Yeah, be tough. Luckily, all my fantasy players, I think most of them are vaccinated. So
Yeah, you got to take
we're
that
good.
into account.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But let's move on. I think we've had enough Vax talk. I get a little heated on that. But Portland Trailblazers, exciting team. They are on the brink of extinction, though, here with their relationship with Damian Lillard. What do they do to make it better? Well, they have to win games, Dalton. They have to win games. And they're not going to do it to a bigger level than last season with the guys that they brought in this year being Cody Zeller and Larry Nance and Ben McLemore being the main ones. They need to bring in another player. Now, let's come up with some trade proposals here that could possibly get them that guy. One that I want to say right off the bat, I don't think that first of all, I don't think that the Blazers can bring in a guy better than CJ McCollum without trading CJ McCollum.
Yeah.
So my first trade is CJ McCollum and a first round pick for Tobias Harris. This would get them a guy who can score inside and out. He's still only 28, so it's the same as CJ McCollum. Shoots a lot of mid-range shots, and he kind of lives in the corner in the top of the key. But that's a guy who can find his spot and get his shots. So I would love to have him on this team, especially because he could get some rebounds, take some pressure off Nurkic inside, and keep Covington more on the outside, taking the threes and passing it on the perimeter. I think that would be a solid get for them. Personally, I don't know if the Sixers would do that. if they want that primary ball handler and they're like, all right, this is the best we're going to do, maybe they pull the trigger on it. But I think that's a solid move. To especially, they just need to shake things up in Portland, in my opinion, too. I think the Dame CJ connection is just it's run its course. It's been a long time, and it's time to get him a better big.
Yeah. I know. So I like that, but I think a swap, just a clear swap, is more engaged. I do think CJ McCollum went on the floor is better than Tobias Harris, but really what I see Portland buying into is Tobias Harris rarely misses games. Like he does not get injured often. And that's like the big thing for Portland. Like we need consistency. Like he's probably gonna fill the same role as CJ does. He's not the best playmaker, as it said. He's just a guy. He's a great wing to just have out there, score. Doesn't play that great of defense, but I mean, neither did CJ McCollum. But I just don't see. I mean, I guess they do have a Norman Powell to come up and play that too, and they can just have Tobias play the. I mean, Tobias Covington can switch off 3 or 4 with Larry Nance there. I like that fit. I'm interested in it. You know, I'm not convinced that puts them over the top. However, I'm interested to see where it goes. I don't think it hurts them any.
I think realistically, they don't have a ton of choices to get over the top. I mean, I don't know who they're going to get. Honestly, that's better than Tobias Harris. I know there's other names out there, but realistically, trades for big time players don't happen till the trade deadline. And it's usually not going to be like for a superstar. You know, it's just not likely.
Yeah. The only superstar I have getting traded at all for this is I don't think it's a good fit, but I just wanted to throw it in here because everyone's talking about it, is a Ben Simmons trade. So it's Ben Simmons for CJ McCollum, Nasir Little, and Rondé Hollis Jefferson. Sixers fans probably not going to like that, but that's what his value is. I mean, you're losing a ton of scoring if you're at Portland, right? Because so you have 3 scorers that were consistent because you lost Cantor, and Cantor was actually a huge part of their offense last season. And plus, he was great on the offensive boards, rebounding. He's really stepped up when Nurkic went down because Nurkic is just a pile of injuries waiting to happen. So getting Ben Simmons, sure, it helps your defense. Sure, it helps your playmaking. You get another playmaker next to Dame, but you lose so much offense. Like now you go from you're a shared third option between Nurkic and Norman Powell to like Norman Powell being your second scoring option, and I don't like that look. And Ben Simmons, I just don't like it. I don't think it's the right fit. I think if a Ben Simmons trade is going to happen, it's going to be Ben Simmons and stuff for Dame, because that makes more starting the reload process or rebuild process for Portland. I'm not a fan of this. I think this trade would go through. I'm not a fan of the fit.
Yeah, I'm not a super big fan of Ben Simmons in Portland either, unless they had to just pull the trigger and get him on a rebuild. I agree with you on that standpoint. I think CJ McCollum gives them a lot in terms of 3-point shooting, where if you went to none to Ben Simmons, that would be a huge loss. At least if you get a guy like Tobias Harris, he's willing to shoot the 3. They're obviously totally different players in the positions they play, but it gets you maybe just better at the big position, which they haven't had since LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah. But so here's another one I have. It's more or less, this is just a straight up swap defense for offense. It's just a mix up. It's so Larry Nance and Rondé Hollis Jefferson, 2 of their defensive forwards, they throw in and they get TJ Warren. You get another scoring option, just a solid shooter.
I think that'd be good. I think good. Losing the defense and rebounds from Nance is kind of tough, but to get a guy who can create space on the wing and drive into the paint as well would be good for them.
I think he raises their ceiling more than tries to fit the system. When you look at Nance and Rondé Hollis Jefferson, they're getting defenders in. They're like, we just need some defenders into this system. But when you add TJ Warren, you're like, okay, now they have like 4 24 20-point per game scores with Norman Powell, CJ McCollum, TJ Warren, and Lillard. I think that's really dangerous. Does not help them defensively because you'd like to think that would be a starting lineup with all four of them. So Dame, CJ, Powell, TJ, and Nurkic. I don't think that's enough defense. But who knows? I mean, defense all really does fall down to the system. And if Chauncey Billups can push a great defense, cool. I mean, I think that's what
Yeah.
they're leaning on for their defensive system this year is a lot of Chauncey Billups change.
If they could trade with Indiana and possibly make a Karis LeVert, Miles Turner package work, trade Norman Powell and CJ McCollum the other way, I don't know if the Pacers would have any interest in that, but you get the big you need in Portland and you get a solid shooting guard while losing CJ McCollum. So it's like, all right, we feel good now. We're still complete. Maybe we're a little more barren on the three wing, and you still want a guy more like TJ Warren. But hey, I mean, I'd be really excited about LeVert, and they really need a big man too.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. But so here's my last one. It's kind of a little bit of the same, but not giving as much defense. It's they're giving the Washington Wizards Larry Nance, Dennis Smith Jr., and Nasir Little, and they're getting back Aaron Holiday and Montrezl Harrell. They're getting a decent playmaker, scorer off the bench, backup point guard that's actually proven to do some decent attributes. He's like a total liability offensively. I mean, defensively, actually, he's not a good playmaker, but you get some decent scoring off the bench, athletic score. But then you get Harrell, and Harrell's just hustle player, get you rebounds, get you some decent, great energy, rim running. I think that would fit a lot. I mean, he could really step into the 6-man role here too, and come out and be another 6-man of the year for these guys. I really see him fitting into the system, especially if they have like Harrell does well when there is an established center. Like, I mean, Zubac isn't the best center, but he still could step in when they had size. And when you have that versatility, like the Lakers didn't have, because AD really wants to play the 4 and he was injured. That's really why his fit with the Lakers didn't work out. And Paul Gasol was older, but I think he would fit well in this. Aaron Holiday's fine. I know I'm just using Larry Nance a lot, but he's really their only like movable salary. I mean, I don't see that why they would move Covington. He's a great fit for this team. So that's why it's just Larry Nance salary getting tossed around.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get good value if they traded away Covington. I mean, you could trade him and get like a pick back, but they need guys who can play. So
yeah,
we'll see. I mean, this is going to be an interesting year for them. Some people still think that Damian Lillard could request a trade by the trade deadline. I don't see that possibly happening. I don't think he's requesting a trade during the season. And I think that's just Sixers fans still being hopeful that that's shipped in sail, but
yeah, I don't think that's happening either.
Sailed a long time ago.
I think he's going to give him a full season, and we'll see what the offseason brings. I think if they make it to the conference finals again, I think that helps their situation. I think if they make it anywhere less than the conference finals, he's not going to be happy and he's going to go somewhere else. But I mean, this team made the conference finals. That's the thing about Portland. You never know how far they're going to go once they hit the postseason. Like, they're a really fun team to watch. So I'm excited to see what they do.
That was just one time, though. I mean, it could have been a fluky year, but hopefully they can pull it together this year. I love a lot of the players on their team. I love Damian Lillard. I hope he has an awesome season. And I'm looking forward to it too. But let's get back to Pacers talk. Pacers talk 101. The Indiana Pacers, they've been sort of rocking the boat, just nice little waves for years, you know. They've made the playoffs many years, never done much in the tournament once they've gotten there. Lately, they've just barely missed the playoffs most years. And this year, they kind of project to be right on the edge near that play-in tournament type team, but most people probably have them missing it even. But they have a lot of solid players on this team. But the question is it time to take a direction? Rebuild or trade for a star and get better? That's their two choices.
Yeah.
What do you feel they need to do?
Honestly, I think more of a reload, like in the vein of what the Raptors are doing, is the best move. I think I think if you can hold on to Karras, but at all costs, hold on to Sabonis right now. I think you can deal with trading away TJ Warren, Brogdon, Lamb, Miles Turner, and try to, yeah, I mean, especially right now, think of all the assets they would get back. I think that would be awesome. We've talked about how many teams would like Turner getting in there, TJ Warren. Brogdon would obviously be a great fit on most teams, good defensive playmaker. It's 20 points per game, defense, playmaking. Solid guy you can throw on any team and be good. But they've been middle of the road for too long. I think about if they added a star, like even if they added a Bradley Beal to that team, I just think it would strip the roster to the point where they would be inflexible. Like they wouldn't be able to do anything. Like we were just talking about the Portland Trailblazers. So I just, and I, even if they had a star with a stripped roster, I don't see them competing with the Nets, Bucks, or even the Heat. So I think they need to raise their ceiling, uh, toss out those guys that clearly aren't working. The Turner Sabonis fit has never worked. And just try to build around Sabonis and LeVert as like a second and third option, or maybe a first option if you can pull out two more scoring guys and lead by committee. It's just
Yeah.
been the very slow decline ever since Oladipo got hurt, because they had Oladipo. He was their star. He was supposed to come in as an MVP candidate. I mean, he had a really good season. Then that injury just kind of fucked his career. So here's where they stand.
Yeah, no, I mean, this has been coming for a bit. It's they've kind of gone from great guard to great guard, from George to Oladipo. Now they've got Karis LeVert. I mean, they're not exactly all on the same level, but solid players who have promise when they come into the team. But is Karis LeVert going to be like the others, where he's going to be gone in a few years? That's kind of the question. I think it could be worthwhile to trade for a star, but it's going to be hard to get a superstar. But here's the thing. They've got Sabonis right now as their best player. Right now, he's probably like a top 40, top 50 player in the league. Karis LeVert's not too far beyond that. But say they get another guy right around that top 40, like right on the edge, like a Jeremy Grant who scored 22.3 points per game last season with 4.6 rebounds. You get a guy like that, he can guard all positions capably. He obviously wouldn't get as many blocks as, say, Miles Turner, but maybe you trade Miles Turner and a first round pick or two for Jeremy Grant so you can get more scoring and some more versatility and a guy who can run it out in fast break with your team. I think that's a guy who could help out, open up things for even like Malcolm Brogdon and Sabonis. And while it wouldn't put them in the same spot as the Nets, Bucks, or Heat, even, I think it would put them right under that. And with a coach like Rick Carlisle is the X factor that can maybe take them over the top even once they get to a playoff series. And the fact that they hired him in the first place tells me a retooling is not happening anytime soon.
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't think it's happening soon. However, I think it's, if they don't produce, I think if they get another play in tournament loss, I think a lot of players will get moved, and I don't know if anybody besides Sabonis is secure. I mean, especially with Karras having another back injury already. Like it's tough. It's tough. But I think, yeah, Jeremy Grant would be an awesome fit instead of Miles Turner. Like I said, Miles Turner, Sabonis never fit well together. They're effectively both centers. They're both slower. So if you move Sabonis to the
Yeah.
center, you lose that shot blocking in the paint. But you gain a lot more shooting, versatility, yeah, athleticism. It's all there, and Jeremy Grant could definitely step in at the four. I think that would work out really well.
Yeah. I think that's a fun idea. We know Indiana had some interest in Ben Simmons, potentially trading Malcolm Brogdon and a first round pick for him that the Sixers swiftly declined. Maybe it doesn't take much more than that. Maybe they have to include another pick or another young player. But Ben Simmons on this team could be interesting too. Um,
I do,
I
yeah.
I would like more shooting. Karis LeVert's not as great from the three to be alongside Ben Simmons, in my opinion.
Neither Sabonis and Turner, and Warren's decent from three. He just doesn't shoot a lot of threes, and Jeremy Lamb is kind of their shooter. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do like the fit of Ben Simmons, because because they have all these assets. So if you can go out and get a Ben Simmons, even if you give up Malcolm Brogdon a first and then a little more change, like I don't know who else do they have? Like you can throw in. I wouldn't like to give up Jeremy Lamb, but you could throw in a Jeremy Lamb or maybe even just another first. I think that's a nice fit. You can still have Simmons at the one in that case and still have Sabonis. Levert can come along as a 3-point shooter, but I think you're one piece away if they get Ben Simmons and keep Sabonis. I think they're one piece away from really being seriously looked at as a maybe not a contender in this league, but they could definitely make some noise like the Heat.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, when you have as great of a coach as Rick Carlisle, and you've got solid players on the team, you're going to be good. It's just a question of how good. And injuries are bound to happen. You never know if when it's going to be your shot. So I think this year they're running it back with their guys till the trade deadline. See what the record's like. Probably trade Miles Turner at that point if they don't like where they're at. But otherwise, I think they're going to see what they got at least with this new coach. I think most of the players in the general manager over there think like, okay, we got our coach. That was our fresh change. We'll do the players next if necessary.
Yeah, I mean I think they did get the best coach. They were the best coaching change for the off season. So that's their off season, and that's a good off season in itself. I actually expect this trade deadline to be really quiet. I don't think big moves are going to happen unless something gigantic happens that I don't foresee. I just
think we're too far away to have any idea who's even on the list of guys to be traded.
That and I think the effect of the play-in tournament has actually really showed up this season where a lot of these teams are like, I could make the playoffs. I don't want to trade everyone away, there's such few teams, and those teams that we all expect.
Yeah, that's cool to see. I mean, that is I was skeptical of the play-in tournament at first, in my opinion. But if it gets teams to be competitive for longer throughout the season, well then isn't that the whole point of playing a season? That's great then. That's awesome. I'm all for it. So I think good effects like that is important. And they've been talking about possibly having a mid-season tournament where players get paid $1 million per player on the winning team. Personally, I don't think that's enough incentive, but clearly looking for ways to keep the regular season entertaining and keep teams competitive. I mean, I like it. I get it. You're trying to look for new things. I don't know. I don't know if a mid-season tournament is it though.
Yeah, I don't think it's it either. I really don't know what it is. Even the All-Star game is losing its lackluster with the players. It's just all be moving towards the playoffs, and the playoffs is everything. We already see teams just like the Nets. They just don't give a shit. Like they're like, we just want to go.
They get the 2 seed anyways.
Yeah. They're like, we'll just show up and play some basketball. And I'm sure they care about getting like a top 4 seed at least. But
even that, I feel like, we saw the Lakers end up with the 7th seed this year. And maybe that was just because they weren't as good as we hoped they were or thought we knew they were. But like, it also seemed like they just weren't that urgent to get like a better seed. And also Anthony Davis was out for a lot of games, and it was LeBron and all the scrubs. But hey, that's the team you guys built.
Yeah, I actually think a lot of this like playoff look and how the players look at it was affected by like LeBron James and his last year, the Cavs. Like they're like, oh yeah, we tried so hard in the regular season, we did all this stuff, but then like look at LeBron with the Cavs. They just have LeBron, and LeBron just can drag this team to the finals. Like they're like it really just matters how you play in the playoffs, and obviously like that didn't even like Giannis didn't even get MVP because they just thought he was going to choke in the playoffs again. Like I think if he would have actually shown, like he would have won MVP again. Like he got better from his last MVP.
Yeah, season. It was like all the perception. It was like, well, yeah, you had a great regular season, but we know what you're going to do in the playoffs. So clearly you don't deserve MVP for the regular season.
Yeah, which is a contradiction in itself because the MVP should have nothing to do with the playoffs.
Nothing to do with it.
And that's kind of the point of the finals MVP. But yeah, I don't know what they can do to mix up the season, but I think the play-in tournament has made things more competitive, at least for those. For I'd say it really keeps 6 through like 11 competitive towards the end of the season. They're not sitting people. They're like, oh yeah, we want to like keep our spot because you can fall into the play-in tournament. Like even those 6 seeds, they're like, I got to get wins. So, but still, like the better teams, naturally, the teams that everyone goes to see aren't. They're like we're in the 3rd seed. We're sitting fine. Like worst case scenario, we fall to like the 4th seed.
Yeah.
They're still not trying as hard, and especially like I still think of Kyrie. Like I don't think he gives a shit during the regular season at all. He's like, I'll just show up for the playoffs, get injured, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, going back to Kyrie, I mean, with his track record and not giving a shit in the regular season, I could see him being like, I'm not going to take that vaccine till like halfway through the season, knowing damn well he was going to take the vaccine the whole time. But he's like, damn, I can use this as an excuse to not show up and play basketball.
He's a,
Awesome.
I think he's really just become a different player since leaving the Cavs. I don't know, but that's Kyrie. Like
Yeah, I mean, he was LeBron's 2-man over there, and he's wanted to be the 1-man ever since he left.
didn't work
Yeah,
out.
like you can't have the ego before the game, man. Like you're gonna piss people off. Like you got to be a number one that acts like a number one and more than
That
just playing.
just
Gotta
didn't
be a
turn out to be
leader.
a good leader. Yeah, I like
Terrible leader. One of the worst leaders in the league. Right up there with the other 2 players that are on the team with him. It's actually crazy how like James Harden's a decent leader, but even he quit on the Rockets after he was there for years and didn't set a good example for anyone there. But you got James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, who are 3 of the worst leaders in terms of making the guys around them better in the league.
I think KD's. I certainly don't think he's the best acts like the. I mean, he has a lot of. I don't know
I
how
mean,
to
he went
say
to the
this.
Warriors, he said, because like he could go there and just fill a role. Like
Yeah,
he's not an alpha dog. He went there because he was like, hey, I can just worry about scoring, getting the ball to me, and playing my game. These guys are going to get their shots up, and I'm going to just do me. He doesn't have the alpha mentality in him to want to lead because he doesn't want to. He doesn't feel comfortable doing that. And so he feels more comfortable teaming up with other guys that are in the top 15 range of players in the NBA. That makes him comfortable. Letting other guys also dominate so he doesn't have to do more stuff. So, yeah, I don't think he's a good leader.
yeah. I actually I think James Harden's a really good leader. I understood why he left the Rockets. I thought he could have done it in a better fashion, but I understood. Like he gave that team everything, won
Oh,
MVP,
no. Yeah, for
but
sure.
she could have left on a better note. And you're at KD is definitely a second leadership option. I think he fills that role better. Like he does more on the court, and I think he could be an alpha dog.
He
And I think
leads
he's
with
really
his
trying.
play.
Yeah, and I think he really is trying on this Nets, and I think he certainly can lead them. However, it's just not. I think these guys fit his leadership style better. Speaking of
Yeah,
Kyrie,
because they're really
Blake
good.
Griffin, yeah, because
So
they're
he doesn't
already
have to
really
do
good.
anything.
Not best
That's
for
what
player development like LeBron or Steph Curry. However, he'll take players as they are and lead them to what he needs. That's why OKC never turned out, is because they had a lot of players that needed development still.
Yeah, like James Harden and Russell Westbrook.
Yep. But yeah, hope that I don't think the conclusion is I don't think they should have a mid-season tournament.
The conclusion is fuck Kevin Durant. That is always the conclusion to anything because he thinks he took the hardest road and he took the easiest path of all time. But
Right.
here we are on Strictly Ball Business, always breaking it down for you. You got something else for us today before we wrap it up?
No, no. That's
All
all for
right,
me.
man. Well, we previewed the Charlotte Hornets today heading into this next season. Super fun, exciting team with a couple of flaws, but I think they're going to be a ton of fun to watch. We've also got vaccination versus unvaccination in the NBA. So we broke that down. What can the Blazers do? What should the Pacers do? Tune back in to listen to some more. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'd love to hear from you again in the comments if you agree or disagree with anything that we said. If you hate the color of my hat, or the look of his glasses, let us know. Strictly Ball Business, episode 15. I think 15. So great times. We will see you all next time.